what's going on. But anyway, okay.
Said
Hi everyone, welcome. I'm just gonna give it maybe one more minute just to see who else is coming in, and then we'll start. Um, Nice to see everyone tonight. Thanks for making it just after Easter. I know some people may be on, if they have kids, they may be on holes or somewhere nice. I'm just in London. Although today in London it was lovely.
it was
Right, okay.
glorious today, wasn't
Oh
it?
my God, the day. If there wasn't everything going on in the world, you'd just be like breezy and lovely and everything's perfect. Right, okay.
Feels like it's still weird when it doesn't rain.
Yeah, I know. But then it just goes dry for months. Now we're in the drought period now, you see, and
Yeah,
then we'll be longing for rain.
we've run out of rain, I think.
Okay, the Earth's already getting compacted up. I can see it's all cracking up.
Hmm.
Right, who's IB45?
Ooh.
I'm just gonna, I think we may, I've just got to keep an eye because I did put a waiting room on it. But lovely to see everyone. Thank you for coming along, and I hope you had a nice Easter weekend. Mike's just coming in. Um, sorry. So just to welcome everyone. I think everyone is not. Hi, Lucy. Nice to see you. I think everyone is kind of no one's new to this group tonight. No one's new to the meeting. Is that right? I think I recognize everyone
I do.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, go away. No, no, no. Sorry. Right, I'm going to turn my phone off. So, what we'll do is we'll ha we won't have a hugely long meeting tonight just because it's kind of like there's not a huge number of us, and so once we've kind of done the updates and Ali and I have a few things we wanted to say as well. Let's try and finish like not go much per, no more than an hour and a half max. Like let's try and keep it a bit shorter today, but maybe that we're just going for the full time. But let's try and yeah, streamline it down a little bit tonight if that's okay. So really warm welcome to everyone. I'm assuming everyone will kind of have an update. Yeah. If there are any issues that you want to raise in particular, and then Ali and I will talk a bit about a little brief meeting we had with the Woodland Trust last week. And yeah, that was kind of it at the moment. Um, Tree stuff, tree stuff, tree stuff. So I made a little film this morning with Joe, a friend, and Lucy about being a green candidate. I'm trying to run in my area as a candidate. So yeah, so hopefully that will be something we can kind of I'll share it on my socials and hopefully if people want to share it they can. If they don't want to, that's fine. But
How did
maybe
it go, Gio? How did
sorry.
how did it go?
It was okay apart from the fact the lighting, because it was so sunny, I would say it's not the most flattering.
It's great, Joe. Look great. Yeah, she was great. She's
It,
talking nonsense.
I always say to Joe, he always does it. He always makes me look much. Anyway, so I'm just being vain. But I think we got all our main points in there about street trees and the threats to them. So that's great. So maybe even cheekily, Ali wouldn't mind, and we wouldn't mind sharing it maybe for people to share. Is that cheeky? Is that too cheeky? I don't want to plug any particular party, of course. But the thing
We're
is,
entirely non-partisan.
yes, well, it is about trees, so I kind of it's relevant. I don't bang on about the Green Party and how wonderful they are all the time. It's more plugging myself. Anyway, lovely to see everyone. With no further ado, hi Christine. So who would like? I'll just take people's names so I remember who has an update or would like to say something related to their campaign or project. I know Carrie from Save Bristol Gardens would like to talk. That's great. Who else would has something they'd like to sort of bring up or any updates particularly? No one?
Maybe we've been so successful that no one is cutting down trees
No.
anymore.
Okay. I think it's
I'll
the yes, Tamara.
I'll say something or other.
Brilliant. Okay. That's
I
great.
might follow on from. I'll take any follow up from what you say about the meeting you had with my government affairs
Yeah,
colleagues. That's
sure.
probably most helpful.
Brilliant. Lovely. Okay. I mean, maybe Ali, should we talk briefly about the Woodland Trust, the little meeting that we had with
Yep. Yeah, we can do that
the
first if
two
you want.
guys whose names I've immediately forgotten.
I'm gonna guess it's Scott and Joe.
That's it, Scott. Scott and Joe. They're very
Very
nice.
nice.
Very nice. Okay, sorry.
yeah. So Gio and I met with Scott and Joe, who manage the APPG All Parties Parliamentary Group. Is that the right way around?
Trees,
For
yeah.
trees and woods. And yeah, so we just thought it would be good to, if we could possibly go along at some point to introduce what we do and see if we can work with them, find out what they do, that sort of stuff. And Tamara was very helpful in arranging the meeting, so thank you to her. But yeah, no, it was really helpful, and obviously working with politicians, they want specifics and things. So, and and we know, as you all know, there's all sorts of different threats to trees, but we feel at the moment that like the subsidence issue is probably something that really needs tackling, and maybe that's the way to use our involvement with the group possible. So we just had, it was just a really quick chat about that really, and then yeah, with a view to drilling down on what could be an ask of the politicians in the future. So we thought from that it might be a good idea if a few of us who really know a lot about subsidence maybe start a little working group to talk about that sort of thing. One of the things they mentioned was that obviously bringing in any new policy takes donkey's years and is a real slog. But they did also say, and correct me if I got this wrong, Gio, but like, bringing in guidance and things like that, like guidelines and that sort of thing, is a bit easier. So I wondered whether we could maybe have some influence on some like standardized guidelines for insurers. Maybe, I don't know if it's possible, but perhaps if there was a way of ensuring that they had like a whole tick list of things to prove that the tree is the problem before they take any action in, forcing someone to fell it. That was a thought I had afterwards. But I don't know, what did you think about it, Gio?
Yeah, I thought it was a really productive sort of discussion, interesting. It was interesting actually that, yeah, they weren't totally across this sort of insurance angle, which is interesting. I often get that actually. People don't really, because it's presented as so binary in black and white, and actually it's incredibly complex. And the other thing we were talking about was because obviously they only have to implicate a tree in damage. So that's all they have to do to really force the kind of situation through where a council or a homeowner is pressured, you know. I mean, we've already got an existing group with Stop Insurers Felling Trees. So we've already got a group dedicated to that. The other thing we spoke about was the public duty to consult, and they were interested in how that's being rolled out. But obviously, we don't have a national audit that we've done or survey on how it's being rolled out. So I know it's being done pretty patchily locally for Haringey, and they're not keeping all the trees up because we've scrutinised the page, and as soon as the trees are felled, they tend to they disappear from the page. So we're trying to, as much as you can, I would say. Oh, there's an echo. Could people mute their audios just so there's no echo? I'm just gonna let me just try and mute everyone. Right. So the problem with so I've lost my train of thought now. Public duty to consult.
It was recording, wasn't it? And how they felt it would be helpful if we had like some really good statistics on where it's working and how many are doing it properly and how many aren't.
Yeah, because at the moment we're keeping count. So I would say to people, if your council do have a page where they're publishing the trees and the consultations, do keep an eye on that, because I think it's not in their interest to keep that information public, like how many trees have you felled over, say, a year. There's a huge problem with trees being felled for pavement damage in Haringey, but it's kind of irrational because all of the trees to some extent in Haringey are damaging pavements. So you would have to, in theory, fell 34,000 trees. So often there's a kind of hidden home insurance claim against a tree with pavement damage. So there's a bit of kind of like massaging of the kind of presentation of what's going on with the tree that's happening. So do keep an eye on your local. But obviously, in terms of for the Woodland Trust, we don't really have. I would have loved to have presented them with an audit of like, this is how it's happening, and all the councils across the UK, and this council's doing it brilliantly well. And these and has anyone, by the way, heard of a tree that's been saved because of a consultation like that was, I'm interested in cases like that. Oh, Ali's
Well,
got her hand up. Okay.
we saved some through the
Yeah.
consult. Well, it was sort of the consultation, but also a letter from a lawyer. They said it was because of the consultation, but I suspect
Okay.
it was a bit of both. And there's
Yeah.
another one in town, which they haven't, like yours, they haven't published. They haven't made a decision on yet. So
Yeah. And we
maybe.
obviously saved well, they haven't told us that we've saved it because they haven't given us the results of the consultation, but
And
we got,
Marion as well. I think.
yeah,
I don't
is
think they
looking,
saved it, but they've
okay.
certainly delayed it and given themselves time to
Okay.
look into it. But I don't
Yeah,
know.
but I think the thing is, what we need to do is, I had a plan to consultations are going on in your area. My recommendation would be put a placard, have a little generic message on the tree, every tree that's threatened. People don't really understand what the process is. Most residents don't understand or don't have time to really understand. So if they have someone they can contact to sort of talk them through what their rights are in terms of this consultation, to try and get their neighbours, because really you want to empower individual streets to really do the thing. Because our consultations, two or three people are responding, it's not going to stop anything. So really, this is our only little bit of democratic power that we have a little bit of a kind of, we can slightly shift things. But I think people aren't really responding because they just think, well, there must be something wrong with the tree. And these are healthy trees. So anyway, so there's a lot of work to be done. Public duty to consult is our main kind of take back, conclusion here. Tamara, sorry, you had your hand up.
Oh, just to flag that I'm aware of a couple of cases that the Woodland Trust successfully contributed to the challenge of. One of them was the one that you flagged to us, Geo, so they won't all be news to this group, but I will find the record of the four that we managed to challenge last year. They were all mature, healthy trees in areas of low tree equity, so areas where there is shockingly low tree cover already. Um,
Great. Yeah, no, fantastic. That would
yeah,
be really
four
helpful.
doesn't really make a dent in the in the masses, but it was more of a
Mm.
proving of what was possible.
The thing is, it makes a huge difference for the people that live near those four trees. That's the
Yeah,
thing about trees in town, isn't it? Like it's
yeah.
not you're not saving the rainforest, but you're saving a place where a bird sits next to your house that you can hear, and
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
is important for people. Also, I think I'm glad you mentioned tree equity because I think it's important when you do respond to these consultations, if it is an area that doesn't have enough trees, that is something they really ought to be taking on board. If they can do anything to avoid felling them
Yeah.
in areas like that, then they ought to be trying as hard as they can.
Put in the link, the chat to the tree equity map, in case that's helpful for anyone
Brilliant.
who may
Yeah,
not
I
be
would.
aware of what one's tree equity score actually is or what that means.
Yeah, that's fantastic. East of our borough, which is poorer, we have fewer trees. You tend to find in poorer areas or less advantaged areas, there are fewer trees planted. What I would say as well is with the another thing on tree figures and tree planting, because local elections obviously coming up and politicians tend to talk about tree planting a lot. Well, we've planted 60 million trees. What I would say is that it's really good to get FOIs. You can get I got we did some FOIs to our council and they're not up to date. But we found out between 2008 and 2023, over 3,000 trees have been felled. So if you think about mature trees, and they would say, oh, well, we planted 4,000 trees in that time, but little trees are not. So there's this kind of like, it's not an equal, it's a false equivalence to just, well, we all know this, right? I don't have to say it to you, but you can do an FOI to find out, and I need to update that FOI, and I imagine it's more near 4,000 now. So if you think about 3 to 4,000 mature trees are gone in just one borough of London. Imagine how many trees have gone all over the country. It's really hard to get accurate figures. Colette, do you want to come in?
Hello there, Gio.
Hello.
Just to say, a couple of Christmases ago, I spoke to the senior technical bod at the Arb Association and he confirmed that they are promoting the work of an American He styled himself Old Growth Forest Evangelist, and his name is Robert Leverett, Leverett, and his website is trees.io, I think. Tree. I'll have to look up the details and send it to you. But anyway, he has done some calculations to do with the amount of carbon that's stored in a 100-foot tall, 100-year-old red oak tree, which we don't tend to have in the UK, so it's not directly comparable. And his calculations using the proprietary calculation software or process that they used came up with a figure of something like 3,000 10-year-old saplings or 48,000 3-year-old whips, which are knee high. So a head high sapling at 10 years old, you'd need about 3,000 of them to replace one single mature tree of that size and carbon storage. In the UK, we tend to have 50 to 60-foot high trees, and they don't tend to be 100-year-old red oak trees. They'd be 100-year-old other sorts. But the head chap at the Arbor Association agreed with me that instead of being 3,000, it would be a realistic come down to thinking it be approximately 1,000 head high saplings to be replacing one single mature tree that's taken down. So when you're looking at replanting rates that people are talking about, you want to mention to them that we're looking at 3,000 head high saplings that need, that need to be replacing one single tree. And as that's never planted, and they tend to go for the whips, which are the knee high ones, which is something like, again, as I say, I think they were looking at something like 48,000. It's an incredible number. And of course, they will say proudly how many whips they've planted, but it doesn't even replace the trees they're taking down, let alone tackle the climate emergency. So it's really important to say this is genuine data that's verified by the Arbor Association as being real information that they're taking forward. Okay, cheers.
Yeah, absolutely. And that also aligns with Jeff Duckett, who's not here tonight, who has been assessing trees for years and is a botanist. And he said he said about the same. He said around 500 saplings, and they'd have to get to a certain height and maturity to actually be if getting anywhere near the equivalence of one tree. So it's always a false equivalence. I hate that when they say, oh, we're just, and even one for one, it's pathetic. And then they're not even doing one for one in Haringey. Sandra, do you want to come in?
Can you hear me? Yeah, so it's just a quick point in relation to this that since the last Canopy meeting, locally we had the head gardener for Hampton Court Palace, and he covers Kensington Palace, the royal parks and whatever. And he one of the comments that he made was that because of the changing, his talk was about the impact of climate change on the gardens and how they're having to change their practices. But one of the things that he mentioned about trees in particular was that they can no longer plant English oak saplings because with the changes in the climate they can't come to maturity. So basically, there will be no more new English oaks. So, why aren't we protecting the ones that we've got? Surely that's a strong argument for, having protections on mature oaks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I mean, that's sort of stunning and shocking and disturbing, isn't it? And oaks are some of the most, as we know, mature oaks can, support up to 2,300 species. They're incredibly rich biodiversity. So oak is a very important tree, and it's really shocking and depressing. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talk about species they're having to plant, or the trees are moving northwards. Is that an expression? It's kind of like, having to plant trees that are, I mean, I read a thing, I don't know if you saw it, that trees are red listed now. All trees are red listed because they're so threatened. They can't catch up with the rate of warming is so fast that they can't actually evolve quick enough and that there have been some very disturbing data that at some point most tree species will just fail. I mean,
Yeah.
think about that.
Mm.
I don't know. There are scientific models. You see these climate scientists sort of every so often they throw out something incredibly shocking like that, and you're like, oh my God. And then yeah. So thank you. Thanks for that, Sandra. Okay, should we move sort of more formally on to sort of updates now from campaigns? So I don't know if Carrie, you'd like to come in, and then I know Tamara also wants to say something.
I just thought
Yeah.
tomorrow I was going to follow on from our chat, our sort of rambling chat
Oh
about
yes, our rambling
APPG.
about yes. Tamara, do you want to go first and then Carrie? Yeah.
Yeah, it was largely just if there were any follow-up questions that you had that I could maybe speak to, but otherwise it sounds like that was a really productive meeting and it'd be great to have you guys at Canopy, sorry, the Canopy at the APPG, when that all meets and makes sense for people's diaries, so that's really exciting. What I will mention from our side briefly is that we've launched campaigns for the devolved elections and some brief advice on contacting candidates if you have local elections in England close to you in terms of keeping trees and woods high on the political agenda for what is, for obvious reasons, an important set of elections for our woods, trees, and local environment. So I will drop various links in the chat about that should anyone either live in Wales or Scotland, know somebody who lives in Wales or Scotland, or want some kind of a couple of paragraphs of advice on how we're taking the local elections with more information to follow. If you're following our social channels, Sabrina, it's APPG and it stands for All Party Parliamentary Group. It's a collective of MPs across the political spectrum who are interested in a particular topic. There's a whole range of them from animal sports to crafts to woods and trees. It's like a fan club for MPs on a particular topic. They meet and further their political interest on a particular topic. But I'll put links in the chat, as well as, if anyone is interested, the Woodland Trust most recent publication that I can find on our overview of the evidence and how native trees are adapting to climate change, which is hopefully a little bit more positive than the kind of very dire everything is going to die messaging that's been mentioned. So hopefully that's a bit of a brighter take on things. So I'll put that link in the chat too. That's me.
Great, thank you. That's brilliant. Okay, thanks. So we're gonna hear from Carrie, who's been is part of a brilliant campaign to try and save Bristol Garden Zoo, or is that what it's called, Bristol Garden Zoo? But yeah, it's a little bit upsetting to hear, but you're fighting a good fight, so well done and keep the strength up. Carrie, yeah.
Thanks, Gio. You're very kind. You might, for those of you who have kindly listened to updates in the past, you probably know that there was a planning permission granted to redevelop the zoo site, which entails massive environmental destruction because they want to put housing on it. 42% of the trees will go. Most of them are venerable or really quite significant. There's a few county champions in there. It's an extraordinary tree collection. Anyway, we fought them through judicial review of the planning permission. That took a year and a half, but we didn't win. So we're really at the 11th hour. Bristol Zoological Society, who owns the site, exchanged contracts with Acorn Property Group last year, and they haven't yet completed. We were alerted by councillors in Frome in Somerset about Acorn because they'd seen them off from a town centre development there and had really quite serious concerns. So we've spent the last big chunk of time doing some due diligence on Acorn. And I know residential developers are not saints in any respect, but we think these are at the sharpest end of the sharp, and a lot of their practices and their handling of joint ventures and leaving partners hanging out to dry verges on the unlawful, though we can't exactly prove it. The founder of the group spent 3 years in prison for an £8 million mortgage fraud some years ago, and it's a very opaque group which has got all kinds of horrific things going on. Anyway, This is all very 11th hour, but the thrust of the campaign now is to raise awareness of why we think Acorn is a really unsuitable developer for such a complicated, historically valuable and really prominent site. It's got 9 listed buildings on it, as well as the trees, and we just don't think that they have the money or the commitment to do it. So what we did recently, and this is up on our website, is, I don't know if you can see that, we distributed a leaflet. It's an open, well, it's on our website, which
Okay.
is www, I'll put in the chat,
You turn
savebristolgardens.org.
off your blurry background, we'll probably be able to see it.
Yeah.
I'll try that. Leave it with me. I'm so incompetent, but I'll try. It's on our website, and I'll put the link. We distributed an open letter to trustees to about 13,000 houses across Bristol, essentially asking the trustees to do their due diligence properly, because they just delegated checking out the group to Savills, who also act for the group, so they're kind of conflicted. And we think the trustees are about to make a horrific mistake, but they don't really care because they just want a big payday. So where we're at the moment is there's all kinds of really, really upsetting clearance works happening on site. They've got the chainsaws going, they've got the chippers going, the nesting season has just started. We've complained to planning enforcement. They've done the square root of nothing about it. We're pretty sure that not all the pre-development conditions have been discharged, so we're seeing what we can do with the planning consultant to attack that. But essentially, the reason, and thank you very much for the airtime, Gio and Ali, was to just let you know that this is happening, to say that we've got a new Insta account and we've got all kinds of footage up there. If there's anything that you can do to get the word out about the disaster that's about to happen and the desperate
Can I ask about your local Green MPs or councillors? Are they being useful or useless?
Councillors are, we've got this area of Bristol has, well, Bristol was the first green capital city. Carla Denny's our MP. I saw Carla a couple of weeks ago, and she is inclined to be helpful, and I'll kind of see where we go to. I mean, she's a decent person, and she may actually, do some of the things that she said she would. The councillors are one former Green, one independent, and one Green councillor, and they've been absolutely bloody useless all the way through. They're very good on bins and bin collection and recycling, but they just don't want to get involved in the planning for some reason, even though that it was only the 3 Green councillors on the planning committee who opposed the development in the first place. It was only a majority decision. But Bristol politics is quite complex. So we're doing all we can with the local councillors, but we haven't really got any traction with them at the moment.
That's really surprising because Green councillors are not supposed to be whipped into line to kind of agree. And also, I thought you had a really brilliant campaigner, the one who got her finger bitten off by a dog.
Danica, she's fantastic. But Danica she's
sorry, I didn't mean to mention her by her bitten finger. She's much more than
amazing, but she's got her work cut out on other fights.
The dairy farm. Dairy farm that I mean, they are shocking. I was so surprised because I went to uni in Bristol and I always thought it was a really green city and I lived there and loved it. And I'm so shocked at the stories, obviously, because the Bristol Tree Forum are also in this group as executive, committee members. And I'm just so shocked at what that council is doing to the trees, in Bristol.
Well, the planning permission was a stitch up between the former mayor and the zoo. And they, this is a whole different conversation. I don't want to, take up people's time, but it was the mother of all stitch ups. They wanted to stick it to Clifton essentially. But, what we don't need is luxury flats. We've got millions of sites where people want to live in the city where they can't live.
Yeah.
And, we should have the gardens available for everybody. The gardens, they've been there for 200 years. It was originally a resource for people working in the city to be able to escape at weekends and get some peace and sanctuary in this fabulous enclosed garden. So
but anyway, councils sell off. They're selling off all their assets, councils, Unfortunately, it's tragic, actually. In long term, it's just ruination of our environment, I'm so sorry. So what in terms of helping, we can help spread the word on social media platforms. If there's anything else that we can do to help. I know I followed you recently, but anything else, and have you done little films and videos and stuff? I think you have, haven't you? Yeah.
Yeah, and we're going to do some more. I mean, we think we've got maybe just a few weeks until they complete the site, complete on the site purchase. What we know we can do, what we know is, because Acorn has to have a meeting with us, because we're clearly rattling them. We are demonstrating outside their offices every Wednesday at 12:30.
Okay.
More and more people are turning up. So that's one thing. If we can get Acorn to pull out, it leaves the way clear for other opportunities for the site to come forward.
Okay.
We know that they're having trouble with bank finance because financial markets are in a mess, particularly with what our friend in the States is doing in the Gulf. So that is beyond our control, but that's something that might happen. But what we really need is for people to understand that Acorn is unsuitable. And if there's anything you can do to get the word out, follow us, copy posts, comment on them, whatever you can do to add to the pressure, that would be amazing.
Acorn are in Haringey, they're all over the place. Is there any direct action? Is anyone up for tree climbing and taking direct action, or is it all a bit late?
We can't get on site.
Right.
Site it's an enclosed.
They've taken possession of it. Right, okay.
Yeah.
This is really sad. I'm sorry. Did anyone want to sort of come back or make a suggestion or respond to that in any way?
I just wondered. Sorry.
Who was that?
I just wondered if you could drop the link in the chat to the most prominent website, the new Instagram.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We'll reach it.
Thank you, Tamara. Thank you.
Thank you. Ali?
Carrie, so you've explored all other sort of legal options now? You haven't, I'm sure you've got some advice, but is that it's just pressure now, is it?
Well, the last roll of the dice is if our planning consultant can find something that planning in Bristol hasn't done properly, we could JR them. Our grounds for injuncting the works seem to be pretty much non-existent, and those are really the two legal avenues that we have.
Just going to bring in Paul here. Paul, is that Paul Powsland? Paul, hi.
I was on mute. Hello. Yeah, I was just going to ask, some annoying noise behind me. Sorry, I'm out planting trees, so that's very on brand. If a little bit late in the season. I was going to ask, what the nature of your campaign to stop it? Was it to stop the development entirely, or was it we want something better that will build some homes but maintain all of the most precious trees?
It's a bit of both. It was to stop the housing development, which is ugly and 6 stories and massive. But it was also to bring forward community-led alternatives. I mean, Bristol here has got 2 fantastic universities. It's got an amazing selection of green businesses. It's got all kinds of. We could have a conservation hub. We could have, people really working well to solve the climate crises. We could do anything with the site and preserving it for everybody to enjoy. I mean, that's really what we do, and we know we can do that on a sensible commercial basis. But what we had to do was to get rid of the plan for it to be ruined by housing before we could bring those ideas forward. And we know we've got people who are interested in funding it. There are a lot of people who've made a lot of money in Bristol, but they won't get involved in the site while it's still controversial. But we know confidentially that there is interest from a couple of quarters that if we can, roll the ground so that it's a free run, if you like, that they would get involved to bring an alternative forward. But, it's 11th hour time, really. That's what's so good about it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Did anyone else want to say anything or respond? There's a link in the chat. Acorn won an award from Bristol City Council last year for their property development. Oh, God.
Yeah, they did, but they also owe Bristol Council 30 grand in unpaid debts. They owe HMRC 8.2 million.
What I don't understand is why developers always do it a couple of years ahead. It's like they kind of clear everything and then they absorb any fines if they do anything wrong because they can afford to absorb the fines. They do this. They have this obsession with clearing the space quite a few years before they even begin building on it. And I wonder whether there's anything that could be, adjusted in the, I just always think that allows for a lot of really bad behaviour and felling of trees that shouldn't be felled and stuff like that. They always seem to do it a long time ahead, and I don't know why they do that. Colette?
Yeah, hello, Carrie. I haven't looked in. I haven't looked into this for a while, but perhaps one route forward is to look at the national planning policy framework and how it's translated into your local plans in terms of the requirement to do proper tree assessments for their carbon and all the rest of it. Because as it stood before, I mean, as I say, there've been some changes last year to the national planning policy framework, and I haven't been up to date with that. But one potential route through the courts might be to say they haven't done the requisite assessments of the trees, because using cavat is just simply not doesn't cut the mustard. But as I say, I haven't looked into it, but that could be an area where you could potentially take something forward to say, put a halt to proceedings while they rectify that assessment.
That's a really
and then
good
also
idea.
if there has been some impropriety about the way that they've gone about allocating the contract, that may, or it sounds like it would, contravene the way they're supposed to give out contracts, and therefore there could be some grounds there in terms of the judicial review, in terms of saying their procedures have not been appropriate, and therefore the decisions made by those procedures need to be suspended while it's examined. So, but perhaps we can speak some more, and Paul will obviously get involved in that as well. But yeah.
Amazing.
The reason why I'm saying this is because I've just secured the help of a top tier senior barrister who won in court last month against Croydon Council for their low traffic neighbourhood schemes, where they had started the schemes in 2020 as a trial to see whether it would make a benefit to the environment by having the low traffic neighbourhood schemes. And the evidence then showed over the 6 years they've been running that where they diverted the traffic to different places to try and create these low traffic neighbourhoods areas, there was so much more congestion because people were not being able to get where they wanted to easily. And that extra congestion caused more air pollution and more cost to the motorists in terms of their fuel use. So actually, it was damaging people's household expenditure, income, disposable money, and making the environment worse. And therefore, it was decided that they should scrap the low traffic neighbourhood schemes because it wasn't benefiting the environment. And the council said we can't afford to scrap them because we're reliant on the income. And the barrister I've taken on board is won in court on that basis last month, and it's become a landmark ruling. Now I'm taking forward proceedings against my local council, Swellborough Council in Kent, because they have increased their parking charges primarily to raise money to fill a budget gap. And that's considered unlawful under the law, but I'm not allowed to say it's unlawful. We have to wait for the judge to prove it. But this is going to be a landmark ruling that will affect all councils, because all councils are raising far too much money from their parking when they shouldn't be, because they're not getting enough money from central government, and it'll push all councils closer to bankruptcy because the ruling will be successful. But that can be turned into a positive, because it's about saying we all need to band together and make central government reinstate proper funding to local councils so that they can make proper decisions about planning applications that would affect trees. Anyway, so I don't know if any of that's useful for you, but
okay.
Yeah, okay. Cheers.
Yeah, no,
Thank
you, Claire. Okay. Great. Okay. Right.
Thank you.
Other updates from folks, or just other things you want to raise, or any issues going on in your area? I know Terry Smith is here. Terry, I just wonder whether I can't remember the campaign you're from. Or are you new to the group? Sorry if I've misremembered.
I'm a tree warden. I've attended.
Oh, you have. Sorry, because I can't see your face. I tend to remember faces rather than names. Sorry. Okay. Are you just keeping your camera off because you're getting on with other things?
I am getting on with other things.
Okay, no worries. If people can put their cameras on it. Oh, there you go. Okay. It's always nice to see people if possible, but I understand if some people are busy and they're doing other stuff, that's fine as well, just to listen in. Okay, did anyone else want to come in with, I'm just going to mute everyone. Anyone else want to come in with anything tree related or Sabrina, hi.
I just wanted to say that I'm sorry that I'm so hectic, and I think I don't know everyone actually. I just pop in when I can and just listen and update myself listening to you. I'm editing my documentary and everything is fine. And when there is something properly edited or something that is going to be published, I will just send you the links and everything.
Yeah,
Okay?
sure. So can you remind us what your documentary is?
It is only about London, so it's about. It started as tree protectors in London, and I'm still following when I can white webs, park, and so on. And I'm going back to people for interviews, but it's divided in different topics because the idea is more like a book, and I will individually contact some of you, especially Gio. But it's mainly starting from the first protest in 2020, and so from tree protection park camps and the Stop HS Stood campaign, and all that was going around London in the first 2 or 3 years. But I'm going back to people to see what happens after the trees. So when they lose the trees, so following both the communities that show this Greek resilience, the birth of Canopy, for example, is something like that for me. But also following some other branches like and topics like the different kind of activities that develop around these protests, like sketching, nature sketching workshops to support white webs or something similar with Happy Man Tree uh, gatherings throughout England. So this is how I met a few of you who are not in London. And hello to everyone. I'm sorry, I never speak. I just wanted to say I'm sorry that I just pop in when I can and then I disappear for months.
No, that's fine. It sounds brilliant. It sounds really important to, and also memorialize all these campaigns that sometimes, you fight these really passionate campaigns, you all come together, it's very positive, even if the outcome is negative, it's a positive thing.
Yeah, in the long term, actually, it is positive. I mean,
Mm,
also what you are individually doing, some way you are entering to politics locally. It is a reaction uh, quite peculiar that comes from your climate anxiety
mm.
and the first time I met you. So it's a kind of conversation that goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, trying to feel like you're trying to do something anyway, putting it into action can help. Yeah, and I think that's great. And not enough of the campaigns, often people come together and it's very, very busy and amazing, and then sort of melts away and disperses. And it feels this kind of project you're doing is very important to keep hold of what happened and,
Yeah,
yeah.
I get lost many times actually, but
Yeah.
I come back.
Yeah. And so much brave tree direct action has happened, people climbing into trees, living in trees, people in this group of, I always think of Julie, obviously all the HS2 people, but Marcus in the trees all over London,
Marcus
Archery.
was
So
teaching tree
yeah,
climbing
teaching tree climbing
everywhere
in
for
Archery up the
months.
road, that all that hot summer of 2022, 23, over into 23. And then also like people like Julie on this group who camped in a tree outside the Holt Tree Primary School, that amazing oak that was felled by that horrible developer Blore, who and she camped in a freezing weather, like for nights and nights and nights, was threatened legally. I mean, these are heroes, they really are heroes, and they're not celebrated enough. So I'm really pleased you're doing that. It's brilliant. Let us know what happens, and yeah. Um, and I'm going to bring you in, and then Mike.
Right, I think I'm unmuted. Just a quick update on some of the stuff that was mentioned last time. Shane from Birmingham, not on tonight, but Rob McBride is still planning to go and visit him and have a look at what's been done there, and at the same time come and look at what's been done in our wood. I did try and chase up the Birmingham Tree people because I thought they might know something about it, and they're not terribly involved with Bourneville because they're their own, and they've got lots of trees, but they thought it might be for a cycleway. And interestingly, I've heard only today that the trees between the main road into Leamington from Kenilworth, the trees have all just been felled in the nesting season, and that is definitely for a cycleway. I mean, I mean, we had all this fight about the cycleway in Coventry that people helped us with and got nowhere. But
Yeah, I
these are
don't know.
big trees on main roads.
So can you remind us, sorry, can you refresh, can you remind us of this, what has happened in Bourneville, you said?
Well, he was a medic, I think, and he was on for a long time last time, talking about all the trees that had been felled on the Bristol Road, the whole lot, everything.
Right.
And he was obviously really, really upset about it. And as I say, I think I put in the chat, have you tried Birmingham Tree People?
Oh,
And
right.
I still have quite a bit of contact with them, and they didn't seem to be involved or know much about it, but they thought it might be for a cycleway.
Yeah.
But the one in Leamington, we've got Warwick District Council and Warwick County Council, where there is some issues. They're trying to, I think, combine them or make it. But the county council, I know, were opposed to a cycleway on that road because they say it's just too busy. It's not wide enough. But it looks as though Warwick District Council are going ahead. I don't know anything. It's just, I think it's possibly the same situation. I'll ask Rob. Rob is hoping to come fairly soon, so I'll see if he knows any more about it. And I just wanted to thank Tamara for trying so hard to raise our issue. I mean, that wood is wrecked. There's nothing they can do to restore it, but we have to still try and. I mean, the sad thing is the Woodland Trust, who we used to meet regularly there, will not now meet us, and that to me says something. But Tamara's tried really hard to get some answers, and she's just, bless her, been given the same answers we've been given, that they agree with it, that it's all right, it's not damaging. It's very sad and it's unbelievable. But I just wanted to say thank you, and please don't try anything else tomorrow, because I don't want you to get into trouble for
I'm not
trying to do this.
No, I'm not going to get in trouble internally for asking questions. It's what we're supposed to do.
Good.
And
Well,
as I
thank
said,
you.
I will get you that email so you can talk with someone who
Well,
will
I
know
don't think
more.
they'll talk.
Whether you will learn anything new, I obviously cannot promise, but I can find you that email,
Well, if
and
we
the
would
conversation will
desperately like
hopefully
to,
continue.
just desperately like them to come and talk to us and look at the site and say what they're saying to you and to everybody else, but they're not actually coming. We used to meet them regularly, had a really good relationship with the local people. Anyway, don't want to go on about it anymore. I'll let you know what Rob says when he's been. And say it's irreparable now, but we have to stop any more, and we have to stop it happening in other places.
I hope that there's been a little bit of heat put on it, that they won't, because the pictures I saw, there were big trees that come over. It wasn't just coppicing.
And oaks. I mean, there's just been this report about the state of oak trees. It's actually, I can give you I'll send you the details of that to circulate, because it's quite interesting. And I can't remember who did it now, but it was funded by DEFRA. And they've done a survey and a research project on the state of the English oaks. And they have literally felled dozens in this wood, big ones. I mean, it's stark raving bonkers. Anyway, no more. I don't want to talk about it again, but I wanted to thank Tamara and just say that Rob, it might be worth Carrie contacting Rob McBride, because he's a real, I mean, he's done so much in Sheffield to help. And he was on talking last week about saving a tree from a motorway. So he does have some influence. I don't know. It just might be worth. And I also mentioned Russell Horsey. I don't know whether when we started our tree group and the tree wardens, everybody raved about how the trees were looked after in Bristol. And that, I know he's not the officer anymore, but Russell Horsey was the chief tree officer.
I know he's not anymore, and we know a bit about.
He may care, and if some of these people care, then it's worth trying to get them involved.
I think he's.
Okay.
I've met Russell Horsey. Yeah. I think he's done a lot. He does a lot of good stuff with planting. Yeah.
He's got a consultancy now. I
Yeah,
can
he
put
came
it
down.
on.
He
Yeah.
came down to see us in Haringey, and we took him to some trees that had been felled, and he agreed that one of them didn't look like it should have been felled. But yeah, he did. He sort of said, "You see," he said to me something quite funny. He goes, "Yeah, you're really nice in person, but you're quite aggressive about tree campaigning, aren't you?" He said to me. I'm not sure he could handle me because
Okay, well,
I
never
went
mind.
with a direct
Stick with
approach.
stick with Rob McBride then.
Okay, no. I think he's done some good work. I just think, yeah, Bristol Tree Forum aren't here, so
Well, Bristol trees were his love at one time. He
yeah,
was
no, he was an
literally
officer
looking.
for years. I know, yeah, but thank you so much, and thanks for the tip.
Just going back to something interesting, I know in Bristol they put where branches came out, they would put signs on saying "Mind your head." And we talking about your first topic where there's supposed to be consultation about suddenly people were frantically contacting us because there's a catalpa in the city in Coventry, which is absolutely fabulous, iconic old tree, TPO'd, and suddenly people saw spots on it, marks on it, and started saying, "What are they doing with it?" And then the notice went up about a consultation, and a lot of people objected. They didn't take any notice, but they didn't cut off as much as they were going to. But I mean, catalpas have this almost horizontal growth quite a lot. And it turned out that somebody told us that actually somebody had hit their head on it walking under it. So that's why the council were going to cut off branches from this iconic, important TPO'd, really old tree. They did cut that branch off, but in the end, they didn't cut a lot more off because there were a lot of objections. But they didn't put the notice up. You know, the marks to where they were going to cut all over the tree were on there before the notice went up about the so-called consultation, but it wasn't a consultation. This is what we're going to do as per usual.
Yeah, no. Okay, thank you, Anne. I'm going to bring in Mike now.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't
That's
use
all
Zoom
right.
very often. I usually end up in a lot of Teams meetings. But yeah, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm an arborist based in Cheshire, and I've been involved in with a local group campaigning against the loss of trees for reservoir improvements. So the place called Poyntool, it's an ornamental lake that's impounded by a dam embankment, and the lake requires improvements to comply with the Reservoirs Act. And the engineers Jacobs, working for Cheshire East Council, put together a scheme where they wanted to install a standard highway curb along the top of the embankment on a concrete haunching, and then in addition to that's the statutory requirement. Then in addition to that, they wanted to put in a formal footpath that had a width of 2 meters along the embankment, but required just under 7 meters of engineering works, 7 meters wide for the entire length of the embankment. And the embankment section under scrutiny is about 480 meters long, so half a kilometer long, covered in mature trees dating back, many of them to the mid 1700s.
Wow.
So we've been at it for 4 years now, and we're getting almost to the end of our tether with it, really. And we've had 2 meetings this year, 2 workshops, and the council has just turned around completely in its approach. And I guess it's us badgering them. when it first it had to go to planning. When it first went to planning, we got it deferred for further information because we claimed that the council hadn't submitted enough technical data to support the application. And there was potentially a very significant loss of trees. So it got deferred. And then it went back to planning in December. Sorry, not December, beginning of January, and was refused, which was really
That's great, right?
Yeah, so it got refused, but they still have to comply with the Reservoirs Act.
Right.
And yeah, we've had two workshops where they've actually been collaborative, taking on board our inputs and now designing a much less intrusive solution. So the concrete curb effectively is to install a level crest, so that if it ever overflows, if the dam embankment overflows, it overflows across an even level, and that means that there wouldn't be any localized erosion on the dam. And we've got now to the stage where they're talking about putting what's known as a pin curb in. You'll have seen curbs around footpaths in parks or in gardens. There's a sort of 50 millimeter concrete edging stones. So we've gone from highway curbs to these edging stones, and they've also agreed to drop the footpath. So the footpath doesn't need to be done as part of the statutory requirements. So a group of us are meeting up on site tomorrow with a laser level, and we're going to mark the trees. I don't know if you know what a laser level is, anyone, but it's like a rotating laser beam, and it hits everything in its way and puts a red mark on it. So we're going to put drawing pins on the trees at the laser level, so we can see how much build-up would be required in different areas to inform where the least intrusive position would be for this curb. So
that's great. And have you managed to save? Are any of the trees? None of the trees are going to be felled now. Is that right?
Well, that appears to be, it appears to be the case. I mean, unless they're leading us down the garden path, but I don't think they are. I think they genuinely want to work with us. They've spent almost £1 million on the project to date, and the Cheshire East Council is strapped for cash.
Yeah,
they're heavily in debt. So all looking quite positive in that regard.
great.
But there is a downside, and I was hoping at some stage to speak to Paul about it, but because the original application was deferred, and when it was reheard, it was refused. They've now missed some deadlines, some statutory deadlines. So they've had to put together an emergency plan. And part of that emergency plan is to what's referred to as draw down the reservoir. So to empty water out of the reservoir, about a third of its capacity. And I think the impact of that on trees will be absolutely horrendous, because the trees are growing on a sandy, gravelly embankment, so they're going to be dependent upon the water in the embankment being fed by the reservoir. So I wanted to get a steer really on what the potential is to take out an injunction against the council and the Environment Agency if push comes to shove, and they seriously talk about implementing their emergency interim plan.
Yeah, this is, I mean, also it depends on water levels, right? Because we have so many droughts, and we're only going to get more and more droughts, and it's only going to get drier and hotter. So I mean, all these plans for reservoirs are quite strange because they're not forecasting. The forecast is everything's going to get, we're going to get more and more droughts and everything's going to get. Anyway, Ali, did you want to come in and then Tamara? Yeah.
Yeah, unless Paul just wants to pick up on what Mike said.
Paul, did you want to come in or did you hear? Were you able to listen into that?
Annoyingly, on the key part, it was cutting in and out on my signal. I heard something about an injunction about that the planning permission was rejected and they might try and use emergency power to do it anyway. Was that the gist?
Well, so under the Reservoirs Act, they have to have a 10-yearly inspection.
Yeah.
And the last 10-year inspection set deadlines for submitting a plan of action, and a deadline for implementing it. And those deadlines have now been missed. So the Environment Agency have asked for an interim plan. And part of that interim plan is to draw down the reservoir, so to reduce the water levels in the reservoir.
Okay.
So sorry. Yeah.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, it was we had a conversation a while ago, didn't we? Do you remember with a colleague?
Yeah, a long time ago. And actually, I was actually going to ask if you could potentially write this up. I mean, maybe not now, maybe when it's all resolved, but as a case study. I think it's a really interesting example of, it's not just about NIMBYs trying to use trees to stop development. It's actually like, no, this was unnecessary, and we worked with the council to try and work out a sensible plan that. No one wants a reservoir breach, but we don't have to chop all these trees down. And I think it's a big issue around the country. We see that authorities taking far too strict an approach to risk and just nuking anything that looks like nature because it might damage something. I think it's a really nice case study where you've actually really gone into the depth and you're going to be working with them to come up with a solution that means the reservoir is safe and most of the trees are saved. So it's quite a nice case study, I think. If you want to write it out.
Yeah. Mike, do you have a website or anything that tells your story, as it were?
we do, but we're constantly fighting to get it updated, to get people to update it. So it's not actually up to date at the moment, but it's preserved Poyntool. So if you put Poyntool into a search engine, you'll find the website.
Could you put the link in the chat, please?
Sorry. Yeah.
Could you put the link in the chat, please?
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah,
that'd be great.
I guess one of the things that came out of our conversation, Paul, was that given that it was actually the trees we were trying to protect rather than the pool itself, then it didn't really align very well with your project of giving rights to a body of water. But now it does, if that makes sense, because it's actually now the body of water that's under threat.
Yeah. Well, it needs more discussion, so maybe you need to connect with, I don't know,
drop me an email. I mean, I don't know if we have to get rights to it, but definitely if it's moved to a body of water discussion, then I'm happy to try and see what I can do.
Yeah.
Although, yeah, it's about looking for alternatives as well, like what alternatives there are to them doing it. Because the problem is, if you've got something like reservoir safety, they just sort of hit a big red button, don't they, and go, well, yeah, anything goes because it's super dangerous. So you have to have an alternative. But do drop an email. I'm happy to chat.
Yeah. I think also, it's ironic that you managed to save the trees, but some of them may fail because they don't have enough water, which seems like a bit insane. It's kind of irrational, kind of different sort of regulations colliding, that aren't particularly working together, sort of. Tamara, did you want to come in?
Yeah, just a very quick question, and I think you've touched on this kind of briefly once or twice, but I wondered if you had any idea what had caused the kind of massive change of heart of the council to go from pressing the big red button, panic stations, it's reservoir safety, all the trees are going to go, and this footpath is absolutely happening, to no, let's work directly with the group that's been badgering us for 4 years, as you put it, and do things really carefully and genuinely try and find a resolution. Because if you can bottle that magic sauce, I'm sure we'd all be buying some. So I just wondered if you
Yeah,
had any insight into what
yeah.
had caused that kind of complete 180 of opinion. Has there been an election? Have people changed, or is
No,
it something else?
well, yes, there has been an election actually. Part way through the general election, we saw a shift from Tory MP to a Labour MP, and he has been very proactive in terms of engaging with ministers and the department. But I think one of the keys is really that we've managed to bring together expertise in ecology, arboriculture, and woodland management, and reservoir engineers. So we have a reservoir engineer who actually is based in Manchester, and he heard about our dilemma and offered his services. So we've actually put alternative solutions to the council that have been fully designed and fully drawn up. We've also got a reservoirs designer, or a retired reservoirs designer, a civils designer, on the group as well. So I think we've been really fortunate that we've been able to deal with the technical issues quite proficiently. You know, if you were to look at the objection that we put in to the planning application, I think it runs to 50 odd pages, and there's a lot of technical work in there.
I think sometimes it's like departments often, or people often work in silos, and if you can get those people together, and if they've got the technical know-how as well and the expertise, then you get respect from. And it sounds really strange, but it's quite a sort of often when you get men together, like, you know, experts, mostly it's men in these positions of, and not always, but I think there's something about, you know, if you can get them to talk to each other, because I always think about highways and trees, the tree department and the highways department in our council, they just work so separately, and they're often working poles apart. Highways have this set of priorities, the tree department have this set of priorities, and then you've got telecommunications coming into it. But if you can actually get them to kind of align more and talk to each other and, you know, have meetings, you probably save a lot more trees in our urban settings. But I think because they're often just on their own tracks. But it sounds like you've brought sort of experts together talking to each other. And, you know, that really helps, doesn't it? It's like, and talking the same language, you know, talking in their kind of language, technical language, offering solutions, you know, alternatives. Maybe they don't have time or resources to really think about solutions. They're going for the easiest sort of route, you know.
Yeah, I guess something else that has been helpful is that because we've stalled things, then different engineers have got involved. So the Environment Agency has a panel of engineers, and it's not a very big panel. I think 20 to 30 engineers, reservoir engineers for the whole country. And they have different classes of engineers. So an engineer can be what they call an inspecting engineer. So the statutory inspections are done by an inspecting engineer. They have supervising engineers who are the regular contact for a duty holder. So Poyntool has an inspecting engineer and a supervising engineer. And because the inspecting engineers recommended works, then they've got a construction engineer. There's another class of reservoir engineer. And it's the construction engineer from Jacobs who's been really intransigent and forced his will onto the council. And the council is saying, we're saying up until earlier this year, you know, we've engaged the subject matter experts, and they're telling us that it's a high risk and this needs to be done. And I completely dismantled the risk issue because they'd overestimated the risk and then graphically misrepresented it to the council as what they were referring to as a high risk, when it was correctly plotted, it was a tolerable risk. It is really about drilling down into the technical issues, I think.
And often coming down, councillors often are taking this advice from people. They're believing they're the expert, and they may be, their view may be slightly flawed or maybe highly subjective or may have different. So it's always, and they're so short of cash and kind of time that they just go, well, they must be right, and it just shows how you can't always rely. You need second, third, fourth opinions sometimes in these big projects. Ali, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I mean, really, I just want to say well done. Like, amazing work, like slogging at it for so long. I'm really, really happy for you. And yeah, I wondered if you could, if we could do a little write up on the Canopy website, that'd be amazing. If you could send me some info. But going into a little bit of what Tamara was asking, like how did this happen? How, I think what you were saying about stalling is basically the crux of it, because that's kind of like the thread with a lot of the things, like, doing a judicial review, getting an injunction, just badgering away, getting a planning permission deferred, doing all these things, even if you have to do direct action, that's the stalling, because then you've got time to scrutinize. So I think, but unfortunately it takes a lot of time and effort and work, and it's particularly frustrating if you're up against people who are getting paid to do it and you're not, and they're doing a shit job, and you've got to do their job for you. But when we get these wins, it makes it all worthwhile. And I just say well done.
I think it's having it's having that core of people who are committed as well, and who are prepared to put the extra mile in.
How many of you were in the group? Are in the group?
There are eight of us who meet every week. So we meet every Monday, apart from Bank Holiday Monday, but we meet every Monday. And then there's a larger sort of core group who do a lot of admin work, and when we have a project that needs a few bodies, then they get involved. And then we have a volunteer group, and the volunteer group collected signatures for our petition. So we did both a paper and an online petition. The objections that went into the planning application, I think 1,700 objections. It's just unprecedented, really. Yeah, so
really good. So it sounds like you had you had a big, good working operation. You have different branches of what you're doing. It's fantastic. So it'd be really great to write up, have a little story of what happened and any kind of. I mean, we keep saying we'd like to successful campaigns. What happened. The biggest kind of takeaways from campaigns is so important to spread kind of knowledge and expertise and kind of, what we did that worked.
And it gives you a bit of hope as well, doesn't it? Because when you're starting something, especially if you just feel like it's impossible, if you read about, I remember when I started our campaign, reading about Sheffield and being like, wow, like they did it, I'm going to do it. And it just gives people, it emboldens people as well to try.
Absolutely,
Sheffield's an interesting one, and one I might differ from some people on in terms of desirability of removing trees. I mean, Sheffield, when you go down some of the old Victorian plantings in Sheffield, you've got an avenue, a street that is virtually an avenue of lime trees. You can't push a pram down the footpath. And at some point in the future, there are going to be no trees because all the trees are the same age. And so, with urban trees, there is this need to remove trees to enable new trees to be established in certain environments. And I think if we can sell that to to councils and sell that to the people who write tree management strategies for councils, then it becomes more of a dynamic arrangement where there can be some give and take, where trees have to be conceded, but on balance, there's a gain. You get a net gain.
Yeah, and I guess like the problem is though when you get into campaigns like that is that everyone they double down, so there's no conversation, and then like I saw here, they rush, they try, because you can't put them back, and they know that. So
well,
I'm just gonna slightly curb this because this is very interesting, but I'm sort of aware. I'm going to bring Christine in, and then I'm gonna I think we'll sort of try and move on just because it's interesting, but I'm just aware that we said we'd try and finish a bit earlier tonight, maybe. Christine, obviously from the Sheffield Tree Campaign, would you like to come in and just
I'm gonna qualify that statement, because it's not true that every street in Sheffield is a lime avenue planted at the same time. That's Nether Edge, and where they put the trees in and built the houses at the same time, to the very early 20th century, and they are actually all not only the same age, but genetically the limes are only 2 trees. So but that's 120 years ago, and thankfully we don't do that now, because it isn't a good idea. But there is a lot more variety in the ages, although there's still blocks of trees that are in a similar situation. Like a lot of cherries were planted all at the same time, which means they're basically all keeling over at the same time. So different ages, different types of tree, different sizes, different things like different planting seasons. If you get things that flower, that flower at different times of year, that produce pollen, then they support biodiversity better. So there's lots of different ways of introducing variety. And age profile is one of them. And I'll shut up now.
Yeah, no, you don't have to shut up. Yeah, no, this is an interesting conversation. I mean, I think we should, and then you think, well, there's another aspect that we're in a climate emergency and we just can't afford to lose any trees. And I can't warn down my pavement. By the way, my road in London, the trees are literally growing out of the pavement. So like it's a struggle to get, in some parts of it. But then you think, well, people do kind of manage, they cross the road, or then you get into all sorts of grey areas of like because the highways often say they want a smooth, continuous run down a pavement. There's a technical term for it. So a lot of trees are getting removed because highways are insisting on this very, very smooth, continuous run of pavement. But then you've got these giant 100-year-old trees literally going out of the pavement. So it's like, and they're sort of patching it with flexi pave, so it's sort of all higgledy-piggledy. But there is probably a balance to be struck, absolutely, And I think it's an interesting area to dig into, maybe in another meeting.
I mean, there are some that are, admittedly, there are some roads which in Nether Edge are really poor.
Yeah.
But we've been working with the council to finally come with a plan to sort out the pavements and sort out the roads and keep the trees.
Yeah, I mean, that's another great example, though. Obviously, thousands of trees were lost. The Amazing Sheffield campaign, which ultimately became a positive, collaborative sort of project between, at the end of the long, hard, very painful, tragic in some ways campaign that affected a lot of people, but it's ended up being some positive stuff has come out of it. So, and Christine's part of that. Paul, did you want to come in?
I realize we're kind of going on this discussion, but I mean, it's maybe another day. We're just talking about this idea of not losing things. The fact is that we can't replace a 100-year-old tree. It's an incredibly precious thing, and in almost all instances I've been involved in, you can just you can do the thing you want to do. You can build the houses, you can make a better road, you can restore your reservoir, you can do all these things while keeping the tree. And actually, we need to be planting more trees so they grow in for the future. But in every city, there are going to be hundreds and thousands of places which don't have trees where we can plant them. We don't need to plant them in the one place that already has something which is completely irreplaceable, which is a 100-year-old tree, in my
Yeah,
experience.
yeah,
We
yeah,
can't afford to lose any more.
yeah.
Yeah, Paul, I think it's too big a conversation, to be
Yeah, I
honest.
think it's one for another day. It's one for another day.
But
Yeah.
it's true. I mean, we're in an emergency situation, and if anyone wants, there is a film going around of people's uh an emergency. You know, the Chris Packham event, he did it. I don't know if anyone saw it in the autumn, but and I can't remember the name of it, but there's a film going around at the moment, a briefing. I think it's called the People's Emergency Briefing. And there's a little film that you can get to come and show in your local art cinema or community centre and if would you mind, Sandra, putting the link? Have you got the link? Because I've got the link. I could put it
Yeah,
in.
I'll find it.
Um,
It's basically they want people to show it, host it, and have a discussion afterwards. So
oh,
it will be, if there are any campaigns or anything, that needs to be brought to local attention, then and the idea being as well that after those films have been shown, to get people, who else needs to see this, and put pressure on government to have it televised later on in the year. Because it's
yeah.
something that the government didn't want to come out into the public arena at all.
Yeah, they redacted it and suppressed it. So we're in a dire place. And I just
Mm.
put the National Emergency Briefing on Climate and Nature, and it's a campaign and with a little film. And it's the film launched, I think, today or yesterday, and it's lots of experts basically, and they want to spread the film far and wide and have lots of, as Sandra said, lots of screenings. So you can actually get in touch with them to have a screening in your local area. And so they really want to spread the word on this. So please do think about that. And I'm going to do it, you know, as part, hopefully, well, I'm going to try and get the Green Party involved, but um, they're trying to get into power. So nature stuff seems to be, it is there, but it's slightly hidden, which seems weird. But anyway, it is there. But yeah, it would be a really good one to talk about nature and trees in your area as well, and with your local councillors, the local elections coming up. We should be trying to talk about trees and protection of nature in our urban spaces and rural, wherever we are, or rural spaces too. But yeah, we should be really hammering our local councillors and MPs about what the hell they're going to do about the fact that nature is sort of collapsing. Sandra?
Yeah, the only other thing I'd say about that is that it's really well supported. They're doing a series of online briefings to anyone who's interested in getting involved with, showing, getting screenings
Yeah.
made, and there's all sorts of support. So it's, yeah, really
Yeah.
worth going on that
And
website.
it's all part of the same picture. What we're doing is an aspect of what, climate scientists are trying to, raising the alarm on
Yeah.
the destruction of nature and the heating, yeah, of our planet. And it needs a worldwide response, unlike people who are trying to blow up the world at the moment, who are just mad kind of men with bombs. But we need a combined effort from all the countries all over the world, which is, yeah. Lucy, did you want to come in?
Yeah, sorry, I've got to go in a second, but this is just one positive thing, which isn't directly about trees, but you may know the Wireless Festival, which is literally 5 minutes away from me, at Finsbury Park, which was going to be having, which is dreadful. It really had a terrible impact on the trees and everything in the park. And it was going to host Kenya West. The Wireless Festival is being cancelled. So I'm
Yes.
rejoicing. We've
We're
just
very pleased.
So it's very good for nature as well.
Yeah,
It really
yeah.
does a lot of destruction.
Yeah, that's good. Unfortunately, Crank Brothers going ahead though in August, I think, which is horrific. But Live Nation also, yeah. So our local park, Finsbury Park in Haringey, has been hammered for years by this festival, by various commercial events. They've got bigger and nastier and more kind of oppressive. And the soil is so compacted in our local park, it's quite big, that the sound travels further and further each year because the sound has nowhere to go, the vibrations from my house turns into a literal speaker at the top of the hill. It like it vibrates. The
And I
trees
live nearer. Yes,
are in terrible condition. They're very poor. We think compaction is slowly killing many of the trees in Finsbury Park. So yeah, that is a good positive thing, Lucy. I agree.
Anyway,
But
I've
for
got to
all of
know.
us, really, I mean,
Absolutely.
our parks are kind of being stolen and sold off and rented out all summer. A lot of our parks, big parks. So unless there's anyone else, any other business, Lucy?
I'm just saying I've got to go now.
Oh,
Thanks.
sorry, yeah.
Pictures.
So unless there's any other business, is it okay if I think we're going to sort of finish a bit earlier tonight, Ali, unless you had anything you wanted to
No, that's
add.
great. Short and sweet. I like that. Good news. Nice to hear some good news. So well done.
Absolutely. So next month, so May, it will be our next date will be the Tuesday, the 5th of May, and then in the June meeting, we'll be having a barrister coming to talk to us about her work with trees. She's been involved in the Chester campaign, Monica. If anyone has any have any recommendations of really brilliant people to talk about trees, their tree campaigning or tree work, do get in touch and let me know. If you know someone who's just really incredibly, it would be very useful and knowledgeable for us to listen to. We normally ask people to do like 15 minutes with a Q&A at the end. Do let me know because I know there are lots, but I'm quite busy at the moment. So if you have any direct recommendation or just someone you could recommend, that'd be amazing.
I'm
Yeah.
going to an art association conference on Monday, so maybe I'll ask everybody there.
Say that again, Ali.
I'm going to an Arbor Association conference on Monday, so I'll ask. It's the Green Symposium. It's about tree equity and stuff. So
that sounds great. Yeah, and Ali is training to be an ARB, so she's our resident. She's fast becoming our resident expert.
Desk-based ARB.
So she has the knowledge. So I think that's brilliant to have someone in the training, seat and becoming an ARB in our midst. So it's brilliant. Okay. Well, listen, thanks everyone for coming tonight. It's really lovely to see everyone and take care and keep fighting the good fight. And we'll see you next month.
Thanks, Gio.
Take care. Bye. Bye.
Bye.